All right, let's get right into it. We're heading back to the very beginning, to Genesis, to dig into a really foundational mystery. You see, before the first sin, before Adam and Eve ever took a bite of that fruit, something else had already gone terribly wrong. And that raises a question that honestly changes how we see everything that comes after.
It sounds like a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer? Well, the answer has huge implications for how we understand sin, creation, and even God's ultimate control over everything. So, when did this angelic rebellion actually happen? Was it ages before humanity was even on the scene, or did it happen sometime after? To figure this out, we have to kind of become detectives. We've got to comb through the first few pages of the Bible, looking for clues that can help us nail down a precise timeline for when Satan actually fell.
Okay, here it is. This is our first and maybe our most important clue. At the very end of the sixth day of creation, what's the official verdict? Everything is very good. That sets our baseline. Now think about it, if a massive rebellion involving a third of the angels had already happened, could the universe really be described as perfect? As very good? Yeah, that just doesn't add up.
So this really pins it down for us. Satan's rebellion had to have happened after God declared creation very good on day 6. But obviously before he shows up as a serpent in the Garden of Eden. This means that evil was born in this undocumented gap. It was an intrusion, a hostile takeover into a world that was created perfect.
And this is so important. It means God's original creation was flawless. Evil wasn't baked into the system from the start. It was the result of a creature's choice, a choice to rebel against a very good world.
So now that we've got the when, we can start to unpack the how. Knowing the timeline actually helps us understand the strategy behind that very first lie. And believe me, this wasn't just some random temptation. This was a calculated, and I mean this literally, a murderous assault.
You have to appreciate how strategic the serpent was. He understood the chain of command. God gives the rule about the tree directly to Adam, right? Then Adam passes that information along to Eve. So who does the serpent go after? He goes after Eve, the one who heard it secondhand. It's just so much easier to plant seeds of doubt and twist the facts when you're talking to someone who wasn't there for the original conversation. It's clever, in a terrible way.
And if we want to know the serpent's true motive, well, Jesus himself tells us. When Jesus calls Satan a murderer from the beginning, he's not talking about a physical death, at least not at first. He's pointing to something way worse.
The goal here was spiritual murder. The lie itself was the weapon, and it was aimed at severing the single most important thing humanity had, that perfect, life-giving, trusting relationship with their Creator. That was the kill shot he was aiming for.
When you boil it all down, the temptation was never really about the fruit. Come on. It was a direct attack on the character of God himself. The whole point was to paint God as a liar, to make it seem like he was selfishly holding something good back from his own creation, and to prove that he couldn't be trusted.
But, of course, the story doesn't end with the lie succeeding. In the consequences that follow, specifically the curse that God places on the serpent, there's actually a hidden promise of his ultimate, total defeat.
This curse is fascinating because it works on two levels. For the literal animal, yeah, crawling on its belly is a physical thing, a mark of disgrace. But the real meaning, the symbolic one, is for Satan. Crawling in the dust is the absolute posture of humiliation and defeat. It's a constant physical picture of his future.
And right here, in the middle of all this darkness and cursing, we get the first glimmer of the gospel. This verse, it's often called the Proto-Evangelium, the first gospel, is the very first promise in the entire Bible. It's this incredible prophecy that one day the seed of the woman, a descendant of Eve, is going to come and deliver a crushing, fatal blow to the serpent's head.
So this all brings us to our final big picture idea. It's this paradox of power. Despite all his rebellion and his very real influence in the world, Satan operates within this strange reality. He craves total freedom, but he lives under total constraint.
Think about the contradiction here. His big ambition was to be like God, to be independent, to call his own shots. But the reality? He is and will always be a created being. He's completely dependent on the very God he hates, and he is always subject to his sovereign control.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theological idea. The book of Job literally pulls back the curtain on the spiritual realm and gives us this crystal clear picture of how this dynamic actually works.
I mean, there it is, right in plain sight. Satan, the adversary,
has to show up before God and literally ask for permission to act. And what does God do? He sets the exact boundaries. He draws the line and says you can go this far, but no further.
This is probably the best way to think about it. It's the central metaphor that ties this whole thing together. Satan is not some rogue force of chaos running wild. He is on a leash, and the hand holding that leash belongs to the Almighty.
The implications of this are just staggering, really. It means Satan can't do anything outside of God's permissive will. It means he can never, ever surprise God with his schemes. And maybe the most profound thing of all, it means God is so absolutely sovereign that he can take the very worst things evil can do and somehow weave them into fulfilling his own good and perfect plans.
And that just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If the architect of evil himself, the murderer from the beginning, is completely restrained by a divine leash, what does that mean for the chaos, the fear, and the struggles we face in our own lives? It suggests that even when things feel like they are spinning completely out of control, maybe, just maybe, they're not.